How are you doing? This is David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. Appreciate you coming through. Appreciate your patience. And what we're going to talk about is the real reason why Israel was attacked, and it's not what the media is telling you. And what I'm going to do in this particular presentation or this discussion that I really want to have more of a discussion than just me talking to a camera is try to help you get an understanding on why we saw the attack in Israel over the past few weeks. It's going to be my own opinion and based on my own research. However, there's a lot of moving pieces to this particular story that, in my opinion, the media is not telling you. So I really appreciate everybody for coming through. Let me know what part of the country that you're coming out of. Let me know that you can hear me. Hopefully everything holds up while I'm giving this particular presentation. And we're going to go ahead and get into it. But really quickly, I want you to try to take something away from this that's going to put you in a position to where you can do further research, because the research around this took a few hours and I really just touched the surface of it. So what I really want to encourage you to do is, I don't want to be a smart person talking to dumb people. And I don't mean that from a derogatory standpoint. What I want to be is a smart person talking to people that are as equally as intelligent as me. Right. And I don't mean intelligent from the standpoint of that, you're intelligent because somebody else told you. What I mean is that you're actually intelligent because you've been able to accomplish things in the world based on your intelligence. So that's kind of the goal of the platform, right? So this is not me telling you what things are. This is me trying to give you an understanding of what I'm seeing, and for you now to go off on your own and do some more research, because there's an overarching narrative to my whole channel that I think a lot of people don't understand, and they may not have the capacity to understand it. But I think there's something missing from our education and from the way in which we view the world, especially in the current time, right? So that's what we're going to do here. Really quickly, we got to go into the sponsor of the show. Sponsor of the show is going to be www.thehighestpaid.online. That's an options trading academy. We want to try to help people that don't make the amount of money that they think they should be making. The people that don't like the fact they got to take a lot of time away from their family to make the money that they make, and they don't like the fact that there's a ceiling on their particular income. And a lot of what I had to do today is how I get money out of the market, which a lot of people don't want to do, which is why they can't get money out of the market. But I can teach you these skills of how understanding what is going on in the world around you, teaching you the ability to understand how to make forecasts and how to model based on that, and be able to actually do something in the real world instead of just having an opinion, right? Having an opinion is good, but having your opinion actually be profitable and having your opinion actually teach you how to leverage situations going on in the world is really how you make money in this world. All right. So that's what we do with that particular program. What I want you to understand is that, in my opinion, all conflicts between nations, right, has an economic purpose. Okay. And I've been saying that over and over again. I think a lot of people don't understand it. It is a byproduct of their education. It is a byproduct of their socialization, and is a byproduct of their indoctrination in this particular society. All conflict between nations has an economic purpose. We're in 2023, right? Pretty much everything has already been established. The goal now is to create new marketplaces where we can make new money, we can add new value, we can capitalize on this situation or that situation. That's what everybody's involved in. And the people that are not involved in that, they really don't count in this world. They just don't matter. They're going to be used to push around the world because they're not involved in this particular type of activity, whether you don't like it or not. Commerce has nothing to do with capitalism. You can have commerce without capitalism, but there's no such thing in this world as commerce with like people that don't understand how to do it. And I think a lot of people are kind of confused around that. And in my opinion, what we've seen over the past few weeks has very much to do with commerce and economics, as opposed to people just not liking each other. And so what we're getting is a lot of people from media. We're getting people to me that are essentially agents of Israel, and their job is to shape a narrative in our mainstream media because there's an economic purpose, because Israel is our largest beneficiary of financial aid. So there's no country in the world that gets more aid from the United States than Israel. Therefore, Israel has an economic incentive to make sure the aid keeps coming. Therefore, Israel has agents inside the United States that need to shape a narrative to make sure that the aid keeps coming. And so what we have is we have a lot of people speaking a lot of things, and they really doesn't make any sense, but it's what they've been programmed to say. When this situation first started, where what reportedly Hamas killed those people in Israel, and people were saying, well, this happened because Biden gave Iran $6 billion. Okay, that doesn't make any sense, but it's an easy way to come up with an explanation. And what you'll find often is that when you have an uncertainty around something in the world, you have like a hole in your brain, right? And what you'll look to do is fill that hole as fast as possible. And so what people do that are not haven't really taught how to think properly, they fill that hole with the first piece of information that they think will fill the hole. So people in Israel get attacked by who we believe to be Hamas. And immediately somebody says, well, the reason why they got attacked is because Biden released $8 billion to Iran, right? And then Iran, I guess, used that money to give the money to Hamas to attack these people in Israel. And if you sit these people down and ask them, how does that work? Like, give me the structure of how that works. They won't be able to answer the question, because that information is outside of what has been put into their head. Then when you understand that money actually went to Qatar, and the US and Qatar have to agree to release that money to Iran for very specific things, then we understand that type of attack based on that kind of planning, nobody wakes up in the morning and decide they're going to do that. They have been planning to do that. In fact, those men got training outside of Gaza, and they were brought back into Gaza to do that operation. So how did all of that happen in that short amount of time from the information given to us? So you telling me in that short amount of time, they got trained to do that operation. They got that level of coordination taking place. Anybody that's in the military, ask yourself, how long does it take to coordinate that type of attack? Can you do that in 2 or 3 weeks? And we're talking about Gaza being one of the most surveyed, one of the areas in the world that has the most amount of surveillance on the city by Israel. So they couldn't been training for that inside Gaza. They had to get that training from somewhere else and then be imported back into Gaza to execute that particular plan. And I'm not even former military. I just have an understanding of structure, right? So this is the challenge, is that we often have been miseducated on how to think about complex things properly, which means we're out of position for how the world really works. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about here, right? This is a situation with a lot of moving pieces, and the average person can't wrap their head around it. So what you have is media platforms that have been built by very smart people to talk to very dumb people. And what they do is they feed those very dumb people with whatever information they want them to believe. Or somebody just says, hey, it's a conspiracy, which means that I don't have to really figure out what took place. But conspiracies are in secret. If something's happening right in front of you, there is no conspiracy. And I think people really don't, because they don't really understand the concept of conspiracy, but they use it as an explanation for anything going on in the world that they don't understand. They say, oh, it's a conspiracy. Well, conspiracies are in secret. So if we're doing it in front of you, there is no conspiracy, right? So that's what I want people to understand. But to get back to what I'm talking about, because I don't want to be too long-winded with my opening monologue, all conflicts between nations has an economic purpose. It doesn't matter who they put on the front. All organized groups that are effective got a team full of killers. U.S. got them too. U.S. has people. They'll give you their name. The U.S. will give somebody their name, and they'll go kill you. No questions asked, right? They'll kill everybody in the house. No questions asked. And you're delusional to think the U.S. don't have those type of people on their side. All well-organized, efficient groups got killers on the team, real killers. I'm not talking about these dudes that's just shooting crazy out here on the street. They have highly trained, no remorse killers, right? So when you understand how the world really works, you got to understand that if you're going to be an efficient and effective group, you got to have them type of people on deck, right? And all you got to do is give them a name, and they're going to go handle that business, and they're not going to ask no questions, right? So you really got to understand that. So you don't make yourself believe that people do stuff just because it's an issue between them or they hate people. That's not how this game works in real life, not on the level that this game is being played on. That's how this little stuff works on this little, interpersonal domestic violence stuff on a national level. That's how this stuff works, right? So I want you to really understand that the people that they're showing you is the people that did this. It's not the people that's behind it. They're the people that got sent to do this because that's what they were trained to do. And every efficient group, the United States has them, Japan has them, China has them. Every efficient group has those people, right? because people got to know that you got those type of people on deck for them to respect you on a certain level, right? So let's go ahead and get into it, right? So I want you to understand all conflict between nations has an economic purpose. There is no other purpose. These nations don't beef just because they don't like each other. There's always an economic reason behind it. There's a commercial reason. There's a market-based reason behind it. And so that's what I want you to really understand when you're getting caught up in these little personal and he say, she say beefs and yada, yada, yada beefs. And my question always is, when we going to get money out of this, right? Young people in America have been conditioned to just be beefing over he say, she say, and what this person said. And after y'all finish doing all that, when we going to get some money, right? When do we get paid out of this? But what they've done is they've conditioned our young people that you're supposed to kill over everything except some bread, except controlling something from a financial standpoint. You're just supposed to kill because you don't like somebody. And that's not why they would do what they do. They do what they do behind economic reasons. I'm gonna go ahead and get into it, right? So what I want you to do is see this. If you can see this, right? Let me go ahead and pull this up real quick. Make sure I got the right screen. Okay, this is the India Middle East Economic Corridor, right? This is what this whole issue is about. Now, the average person doesn't even know what this is because it's not something that's talked about in the media, right? This is the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. It goes from India all the way into Greece. Now, what the average person may not know is that Israel and India have a great trade relationship, right? This is something that's not talked about. Sorry, India and Israel have a great trade relationship. Let me retract that. India and Israel have a really good trade relationship, but something that's not talked about. What they're attempting to do and what they want to do is create a trade route that goes from Mumbai all the way into Greece. It cuts through UAE, it cuts through Saudi Arabia, it cuts through Israel, can also cut through Jordan, and it cuts through Greece. And so what does it mean? It means everybody around here can piggyback off this, right? Because it's going to be a trade route. And if you really study the world, a lot of wars in this world, even pre-capitalism, right, were created around trade routes. It was because people either wanted to build a trade route or control a trade route, or they wanted to, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of wars in the history, even before we got this particular term called capitalism, is because people wanted to establish trade routes. So what they had to do was go in there and fight people to allow them to put a trade route together. And then once we establish a trade route, then we just charge people for using the trade route. That's how we get paid. And then we protect the trade route so the merchants can use the trade route. They do their business. They pay us to do the trade route, and that's how we make our money, but we use our military to establish it. Okay? So what I want you to understand is that this is what this whole thing is about. It's not about anything else. And it's about people either being for or against this situation, because either they're going to be involved in it or they're going to get cut out, right? Often when you see a conflict in this country, it's because people, not in this country, you see a conflict in the world, it's because people want a new contract or they want a contract. And when I say a contract, they want a trade deal, right? What does the United States do as soon as they don't like a country? They try to cut you out of the world market. They've done it to Venezuela. They've done it to North Korea. They've done it to Iran. They did it to Cuba, right? The first thing the U.S. does before they ever try to send their military to go kill your people is they try to cut you out of any economic activity. They try to starve you out economically, because the whole game is about economics. It's not about anything else. And so you really, really got to understand that this is the game that's being played. Now, they're never going to come to you and present this information to you. They're going to talk about how these people are, you know, degenerates and they're retrobates and yada, yada, yada. I can take any military of any country and show you atrocities that military has done, right? I can take that for any military. There's not a military in the history of the world where I can't show you that military has created atrocities, right? Because you program these people to be about a certain way and you point them in a certain direction, and they're not going to ask no questions if they've been programmed properly. Their job is to do their job, right? So that's what I want you to understand. So they're going to focus on the things that happen, but not tell you what's going on around the situation to make these things take place. So let's keep going, right? But I want you to Google, when you got some chance, the India Middle East Economic Corridor or Europe Economic Corridor. That's really what this is behind. But there's something that was going on before all of this, right? So this is where we're at in 2023, but this didn't start because really the first person to really try to organize this in the modern era, because they tried to do this back in the 50s and it didn't work, was Trump. So we're going to go into this, right? Let me go ahead and make sure I pull up the right screenshot. That's not the right one. Let me go here. Okay. That's not the right one. Okay, so we got this particular screenshot. A new Arab military alliance has dim prospects. This is from, what date is this? August 6, 2018, right? So when Donald Trump, King of Saudi Arabia, Egypt's president, laid their hands on this glowing orb in Riyadh, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, right? It provoked bewilderment and derision, right? On September 28th, Mike Pompeo, America's Secretary of State at that time, met 6 of his counterparts from the Gulf Cooperation Council, as well as Egypt and Jordan, and confirmed they were fashioning a Middle East strategic alliance, right? They paid lip service to the goal of curbing terrorism and pacifying Syria. But their priority plan was stopping Iran's malign activity, right? So what I want you to understand is that Trump, and something that he ran on, was that we have a lot of bases in Egypt, not Egypt. We have a lot of bases in the Middle East. And Trump felt like those bases in the Middle East really were kind of like overboard. We're doing a little bit too much work there. What Trump wanted to do was put together an alliance and allow those people to be able to support themselves, almost create what we call a Middle East NATO, and for them to be able to protect themselves against attacks, and for the United States to be able to pull out of that particular area. And that's something that he ran on. So he initially tried to put this together. It didn't work. It didn't come together, but he tried to, because what he ran on was the fact that the United States has all these military obligations abroad. We're spending all this money, these military obligations abroad. We're being brought into these particular conflicts and we don't get compensated for it, but we're always involved in something. Here's another article, right? From Carnegie. The Arab world needs a collective security architecture. The U.S. project of a Middle East strategic alliance could be a theory and step forward as it links military security to political and economic security. MESA has been conceived to meet U.S. needs, to target Iran, and to reduce U.S. regional presence without allowing China or Russia to gain influence, while disregarding the priorities and the constraints of the prospective Middle East states, Arab member states. So MESA was first announced during Donald Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia in 2017. It was described as contributing to peace and security in the region and the world. It's going to include all the GCC states, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, as well as Egypt, Jordan, and the United States. The idea revolves primarily around security, but more recently has adopted economic and political aspects as well. It joins a rather crowded field of regional alliances that exist in practice or on paper are still under consideration. What I want you to do is look at this right here, right? These are bases that we currently have in this particular area, right? So this is what we call the Middle East. This is how many troops we have in all these different bases. Okay. And so what Trump was, what he kind of was proposing is that we can get some of these troops out of these areas. We can save the United States a lot of money if we get these Arab states to come together and to put something together to protect themselves. And that essentially was the original plan. Now the plan has changed now because he's no longer in office and they weren't able to put this together. But what I want you to understand is that there has been a push to get U.S. soldiers, but also U.S. money to come out of these particular areas. By getting these people to learn how to protect themselves, they can buy U.S. weapons, but we're going to pull the footprint of U.S. troops out. And if you can look at this particular diagram, if it's big enough, it shows how many thousands of U.S. troops are in these particular Middle East, or what we call Arab states. Okay, so this Middle East alliance was proposed by Trump early on in his administration. It didn't really go through. Trump wasn't really able to sell them on it. So now we're looking at a new alliance, but we talked about before. The goal is to put this together, right? This is the goal. So whatever alliance we got to put together to make sure that we can pull this off, that's the goal. Okay. Now the question is, who we talked about before, the first situation, who was exempted from that? This situation, who's going to be exempt from it? So what does it mean? They don't get no money off this situation. And that's what I want you to understand. They're going to be economically shut out because what does the United States do when they don't like you? They cut you out of the economic activity. And that's something that you really want to understand. Okay, so I think that's everything that we want to talk about with that. So that's kind of what the framework I want people to really kind of wrap their head around. Now we got to go into like what has happened over the past really few months, because this is old stuff, right? Even though that Middle Eastern economic corridor is relatively new. It came in effect when Biden got elected, but that's still old. We'll talk about what happened over the past few weeks that to me led to where we're currently at, right? So let me show you something and make sure I got this screenshot to come up. Okay, so let me share my screen out and bring something else back up. Okay, so this is the, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of like the Netanyahu administration. I got the Minister of Finance and I got the Minister of National Security. Now you may ask yourself, what do they have to do with like anything? Like why are they here, right? What I want you to understand is that currently the Netanyahu government wants to annex the West Bank, right? That's been going on. It's something the media hasn't really talked about. It's been reported, but it hasn't really come through mainstream media inside the United States. And the reason why it hasn't come through mainstream media inside the United States is because there's a push to make sure that Americans are ignorant around what's going on. And we don't really understand things from a world perspective. And so they don't really think it's newsworthy. So it doesn't really get reported in the mainstream news, just like that alliance didn't get reported in the mainstream news, even though it's a real life situation. I can kind of show it to you. However, this is a real thing. So this has been going on. I'm gonna kind of show you what I'm talking about. And these two figures on the right and the left of Netanyahu are very, very important people because they have very important positions in the Israeli government. One's the Minister of National Security, other guy's a Minister of Finance, but he also has a position in the Defense Ministry. The guy on my left, right, on the facing the camera on the left, with the white, I forgot what you call that particular thing they wear on their head, right? He got cut out of the defense cartel that they just formed. But the guy on the right, from my understanding, is in that particular situation. Okay, so I want to really try to get you to get some framework of what I'm talking about. So let me get rid of this pop up. So far right will vote coalition of Saudi deal seats Palestinian concessions, right? So Netanyahu's coalition partners held his speech Friday to the General Assembly. And what I want you to do is notice the dates, because these dates are really, really important. This is from September 22nd, 2023. It's really not that long ago. Notice these dates when we're breaking down these articles. Netanyahu went to the General Assembly. He said Israel is on the verge of normalizing ties with Saudi Arabia, while insisting they would not support Israeli concessions, widely understood to be a critical component of the deal. I can't pronounce this guy's name, but he's head of the far-right Otzma Yehidit party, said that his and his second far-right party will quit the coalition if such concessions were made, right? We're going to talk about what those concessions are. If there will be concessions for the Palestinians, we will not remain in the government, and not just us, but the religious Zionism party as well. Netanyahu can only make this deal with Benny Gantz, National Security Minister, who has the far-right Otzma Yehudit party, okay? Smotrich, which is the guy that was on the right of that particular picture, who has spearheaded the government's record-setting rate of approvals for settlement home construction, already said last month that he would not countenance, I forgot how you pronounce that, any concessions for the Palestinians, okay? Here's another article. That guy that was on the far right, this came out from the ADL. Now, we know the ADL because they're the people that went after Kanye West, right? That guy that was on the left with the white, I forgot what you call that particular hair thing that they wear, is a member of a far-right group, right, called Otzma Yehudit. And the ADL came out against that particular person in that group, said they're self-identified disciples of U.S.-born Rabbi Meir Kahane, who preached a radical form of Jewish nationalism that promoted unabashed and virulent anti-Arab racism, violence, and political extremism. So this guy here is a member of this particular organization that the ADL came out against, and they're also Jewish people. So anytime you say something negative about Jewish people in media, normally it's the ADL inside the United States come out against you. They came out against this guy, right? And said that this guy is somebody that we don't agree with because he's a member of an anti-Arab racist group. Okay. But this guy is the Treasury Secretary. Here's another article, March 21st, 2023. Senior Israeli official blasted as racist for saying there's no such thing as a Palestinian nation. Okay. Senior member of Israel's far-right government was blasted as racist Tuesday by Jordan's top diplomat for dismissing, saying there's no such thing as a Palestinian nation. He said there's no Palestinian history. There is no Palestinian language. Israeli finance minister Bezalel Smotrich added a Sunday memorial service in France for right-wing French Israeli activists who held similar views. Okay. Smotrich is one of the most extreme members of Israel's new far-right ultra-nationalist government. He has a history of opposing Palestinian statehood, making offensive comments about Palestinians, LGBTQ people, and other minority groups. When Israeli settlers rampaged in the Palestinian West Bank town of Hawara last month, he called for the community to be wiped out, causing international uproar. He later apologized. So this is who Netanyahu is running with. Okay. Now let me show you a video from one of these guys and what he had to say about Arabs. Let me see, can we pull the video up? Okay, there we go right there.
במרקם חיים, הזכות שלי, של אשתי, של הילדים שלי, להסתובב בכבישי יהודה ושומרון, יותר חשוב מזכות התנועה של הערבים. סליחה מוחמד, אבל זו המציאות, זו האמת, זכות החיים שלי קודמת לזכות התנועה.
Okay, let's watch that.
במרקם חיים, הזכות שלי, של אשתי, של הילדים שלי, להסתובב בכבישי יהודה ושומרון, יותר חשוב מזכות התנועה של הערבים. סליחה מוחמד, אבל זו המציאות, זו האמת, זכות החיים שלי קודמת לזכות התנועה.
Okay, so these are the people that Netanyahu is running with. These far-right guys who are expressing the fact that, like, we just don't like Arabs. Okay? Now, what I'm supposed to believe is that the Arabs are the only bad people, right? Because we're not getting this information from our media. We're only getting the after effects of something that had been going on for a long period of time. So let's keep going with it, right? So this was from, okay, hold on. This was from September. Now we're going to go into June 18th, 2023. So Netanyahu hands Smotrich full authority to expand existing settlements, right? So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government passed a controversial resolution Sunday that gives practically all control over planning approval for construction in West Bank settlements to Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, an ultra-nationalist advocate of settlements. Let's keep going. That was in September. This was in July 27th, 2023. Last Wednesday, let me read the headline. While Israelis were in the streets, Smotrich unveiled his annexation plans. So last Wednesday, during the discussion, Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, he unveiled his annexing revolution in the occupied West Bank. So discussion in the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee was held under the title, The Palestinian Authorities Take Over Open Areas, right? At the beginning of the meeting, the military body changed with overseeing the lives of civilians living in occupied territory, providing data showing that Palestinians have no way to legally build an Area C of the West Bank, which covers over 60% of the West Bank, is under full Israeli military control. Around 98% of Palestinian requests for building permits are rejected, said the representative. This in itself is nothing new. Similar discussions have been held in I don't know how you pronounce that, in the last 5 years. But now the representatives of these organizations, including Smotrich, are the ones running the government, and their ideology has turned into state policy. So what an Area BC in the West Bank, right? Here's a map. This is the West Bank. These are areas A, B, and C. They want to annex Area C. Now, this is going to come into play later on. We start talking about this economic deal. They want to annex this particular area. So Smotrich and the other guy, they're in favor of expelling Palestinians out of the West Bank, right? And sending them wherever they need to go and allowing Israelis to not settle that land. Okay? So this has been going on since this year. Now, the media is not talking about this. They're giving us every other story except this one. Okay. Now, here's what I want you to understand. Israel and Saudi Arabia are trying to come into some type of peace deal or normalization deal. It's really, really important for Israel. One of the core conditions for this Israel-Saudi Arabia peace deal is to stop annexation plans for the West Bank. Right? Because what Saudi Arabia doesn't want to make it seem like what happened is we left Palestinians out to dry but we made a deal with the Israelis. So they wanted to put into this particular normalization deal is that we want Palestinians to essentially get all of Area C, and Area C is in the orange. Okay. So Saudi Arabia wants Palestinians to get Area C in the West Bank as part of the normalization deal. Okay. The Arab world does not want to absorb the Palestinians who would get exiled out of Israel. These guys, essentially, if they could have it their way, they would exile Palestinians out of Israel. The problem is, where do they go? Okay. So they want to exile Palestinians out of Israel. The question is, where do Palestinians go if they get pushed out of Israel? So here is a map. This is Israel. If they push them out, most likely they're going to end up in Jordan. And we're going to talk about why that could be problematic. Okay. But these guys want Palestinians out. They want Israel to go from Jordan all the way into the Mediterranean Sea. So from east to west, that's how they want Israel to expand, because in their mind, this is all Israeli land anyway. So we don't want Palestinians here. Right. So Saudi Arabia wants to import in their little normalization deal. You got to let Palestinians have this particular part of the land. These two guys don't want it, and they have influence in this particular Israeli politics. Right. So this guy on my right, he now is coming up with plans to get those people out of there. And I want you to look at the date of this. Right. What was the date that we looked at? This was in July 27, 2023. We talked about this. Now, let me keep going. That's that. Let me go to the next one. Israel needs to find a way to get acceptance from its Arab neighbors. We looked at this particular map again. Look at this map of Israel. This is Israel, right? This is everything else. These are all Arab states. Israel has to get normalization. This has been going on for pretty much over 50 years. They need to get normalization. If they can't get normalization, they're going to have a problem. Because let me tell you a story real quick. Years ago, after the Cuban Revolution, Castro was getting all his financial support from Russia. Okay, that worked. You know what happened? Communism failed. Soviet Union failed. You know what happened to Castro's financial support? It got cut off. So when you're a country like Israel and you're heavily dependent upon U.S. financial support, and this has been going on for all this time, you need to figure out how to get some normalization so you're not in that same situation, because Israel has a developed economy. They do a lot of tech. They do a lot of biotech. They have things going on, but because of the strife in the area, they need all this military support to keep this thing going, right? Because they're surrounded by Arabs to the west, to the east, and also to the south. So they need to figure out a way to get along with these people if they're going to stay in this particular area, right? And so they're pushing for this normalization, but Saudi Arabia is going to put a caveat in it and say, we want Palestinians to get that land, because to be real with you, nobody else wants to absorb these Palestinians. Jordan has absorbed a lot of them. Jordan probably cannot absorb more. And let me tell you one of the reasons why Saudi Arabia doesn't want Palestinians to get exiled out of Saudi Arabia, right? Let me go here. Where is this at? So Saudi Arabia wants to put up something called NEOM, right? And it's this kind of like futuristic city that they want to put up, right? So Saudi Arabia doesn't want instability around its northern border and near the planned city of NEOM. And you can go Google NEOM and what that's about. Something else that's not really talked about. Just from February 2022, it's going to be an eco city. Okay, so here's where NEOM is supposed to be. Okay, here's Jordan, here's Israel. Okay, so this is the northeast part of Saudi Arabia. Another thing that Saudi Arabia is looking to do is finding out, will the United States allow them to have nuclear energy? And it's a rumor that it's going to be in this city called NEOM. Okay, so what Saudi Arabia needs this situation to do is they need the Palestinians to stay in Israel. They don't want a refugee issue, because that can impact their northeast border, and then they can't build there. And then if there's issues going on between them and Israel, the United States is not going to allow them to build or to enrich uranium for nuclear energy, because Saudi Arabia is smart. They understand we got to diversify out of oil. So they're looking already now to try to figure out how to diversify over everything just being based around fossil fuels. So they're looking to build a pilot city there and to expand on from there, right? So they need everything to go smooth, okay? So I need people to understand you got all these different players trying to get what they want. So I wouldn't believe that all of a sudden a bunch of dudes just woke up on the Sabbath and they decided to kick down some walls and to hang glide into Israel and to jump on some little rafts who all those dudes got killed trying to come in through the water. They just woke up that day and decided to do that because they got $8 billion from Iran 2 weeks ago. Like that is the life don't work that way. This is conflicts that are going on because of economic issues and also issues of land, which also tie back into economic issues. Okay, so let's keep going. So the India, Middle East, Europe corridor is unlikely to boost Saudi Arabia normalization. So this is from Chatham House. So G20 summit, President Joe Biden announced that India, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, together with Israel, France, Germany, Italy, and the U.S., want to create what we call the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. So this rail and shipping route would include fiber optics, clean hydrogen pipelines, economic zones stretching from India through UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel to was a Piraeus port in Greece. A working group will lay out timetables, financing plans, and projects in the next 2 months. If it materializes, the grandiose project create a new dimension of economic integration between the Middle East, South Asia, and Europe. Some in Israel are tempted to see the initiative as a way to fire up normalization with Saudi Arabia, a diplomatic effort integral to U.S. strategy in the Middle East. For the U.S., the project to normalize relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia is a means to an end. The Biden administration has been pushing for a deal as part of a broader plan to contain Iran and to check China's expanding influence in the Middle East. A Beijing brokered deal to restore Saudi Arabia-Iran diplomatic ties announced in March was a wake-up call for Washington. Okay, here's the press release from September 9th, 2023, right? This was not even a month ago, a little over a month ago. Today, leaders of the U.S., India, Saudi Arabia, UAE, France, Germany, Italy, European Union announced a memorandum of understanding committee to work together to develop a new Middle East Europe economic corridor, announced at the G20 leaders event for the Partnership of Global Infrastructure Investment. This landmark corridor is expected to stimulate economic development through enhanced connectivity, economic integration across 2 continents, thus unlocking sustainable and inclusive economic growth. They said economics like 3 times in that last sentence, right? The United States and our partners intend to link both continents to commercial hubs, facilitate the development and export of clean energy, lay undersea cables, link energy grids, telecommunication lines to expand reliable access to energy, enable innovation of advanced clean energy technology, connect communities to secure and stable internet. We envision driving existing trade and manufacturing, strengthening food security supply chains. Our approach aims to unlock investments from partners, including the private sector, and spur the creation of quality jobs. This was released, a press release at September 9th, 2023, right? U.S. talks for landmark deal with Saudi Arabia and Israel are gaining steam. This is September 2027, 2023. The United States is making progress towards a landmark agreement that will see Saudi Arabia normalize relations with Israel in exchange for U.S. defense pact and help develop its own civilian nuclear program, 2 diplomatic sources told NBC News. Formal recognition of the Jewish state by the Arabs' most influential power represents a shift in the region after more than a half-century conflict and animosity. It can represent the diplomatic coup for the Biden administration, which has reversed its hardline stance on Saudi Arabia and a bridge to bring together 2 close U.S. allies to ward off China's growing ambitions. Significant hurdles remain, including Israel's ongoing conflict with the Palestinians. The deal would see Palestinians granted as yet undefined land in the West Bank, the 2 sources said, but 2 huge questions persist over what it would mean for the future. So I want to repeat this. The deal would see, this normalization deal, Palestinians granted as yet undefined land in the West Bank. Okay, when was the date on this? This was in September 22nd. What was this guy doing? Right? This was in June, right? He was looking to take this particular land from the West Bank. This was in July. He was looking to push you to take this land in the West Bank. So Saudi Arabia has said the contingency of this particular deal is we want Palestinians to get that particular land, right? You have factors of factions inside Israel that want to push Palestinians out of Israel. You have this economic corridor that's getting ready to be built that's going to exclude Iran and also exclude Turkey, which I'm going to talk about, right? And so all this economic activity is going to be going on, but they're not going to be cut in part of the deal, right? This is way deeper than somebody just woke up on the Sabbath and decided they wanted to start killing Israelis. It's way deeper than that. let's talk about Palestinians are split between two main groups, Fatah and Hamas. This is what Israel wanted. They nourished Hamas to marginalize Fatah. Fatah was a secular group, right? What Israel wanted to do was marginalize them. So what did they do? In my opinion, they nourished Hamas. Hamas is a theocratic radical group, right? But Israel nourished them to try to do divide and conquer. That's an old colonial policy. We take two groups, we split them down the middle, we make them fight each other, and we sit back and play the back, right? So I'm not believing now that if Hamas was these dangerous people, why didn't you protect yourself from them when you knew how dangerous they were? Because you nourished this group. Because you wanted somebody to come in and marginalize Fatah, right? So Hamas got Gaza, and the Palestinian Fatah group has the West Bank, and that's what they wanted. So you can't get any consolidation. They also wanted to create instability between Palestinians. Okay, let's go to the next one. Iran, Turkey, we talked about before, is excluded from this corridor. Israel and Saudi Arabia are key players in this particular corridor. Here's something else that people aren't talking about. Saudi Arabia wants advanced U.S. weapons as part of the normalization deal. That's in that. That's what they want. So what they want is, if we normalize our relationships with Israel, we want the United States to give us advanced weapons. What advanced weapons are we talking about? They want the SF-35 fighters, which is the most advanced fighter the United States has. And they want the MQ-9 Reaper drones. One of the challenges is that the U.S. has to maintain Israel's military superiority in the region, right? So Israel wants to keep military superiority in the region. Saudi Arabia wants to be at a higher level of military, advancement, right? You have people in the region, but in my opinion, people in Israel that won't want to see that happen. Because Israel's trump card that they can throw on the table against any Arab state is we got the best military, is because they get our weapons. Now, Israel does make some of their own weapons, but Israel gets our planes. And Israel really, their specialty is death by air. They're not known for great army. They're not known for a great ground attack. They're known for a really, really superior air force. They're known by death by air. So they want to make sure they can keep that up, because that's really their trump card that they can put on the table against anybody in the air world. Okay. So that's pretty much going to be it. We kind of broke this thing down from multiple angles, but I want you to understand, right? These are the guys in Israel that are pushing for Palestinians to be taken out of Israel, the two guys on opposite side of Netanyahu. Saudi Arabia has said that we'll normalize Israel and we'll go along with this economic corridor deal if Palestinians are given the West Bank. Okay. I don't believe that a bunch of Hamas fighters woke up on the Sabbath and decided to attack Israel. This is something that has been going on for literally all this year. And it's been festering and festering and festering. There was another article that I was going to put up that Israel went into Gaza, I want to say in September, and they killed a bunch of civilians. Didn't make the news, but you can actually pull up the actual news reports. But it didn't make American news. Right? The guy that started Hamas, Israel killed that guy. Right? That's something else that won't make the mainstream news. The guy that actually founded Hamas, Israel, using airplanes, blew up the house and killed the guy inside the house. So this is a situation that's been going on. This didn't just happen that one day. Okay? People saying that Hamas don't want a two-state solution. I don't know what they want. Okay? I don't know what they want. But I know what these guys want. They want to push all the Palestinians out of Israel. And they have influence in the Israeli government. And the guy that's on the right, he's part of this little defense coalition that they just built because of this attack that just happened. So what I want you to understand is that there are economic reasons for most conflict in the world today. It's rarely just because people don't like each other. It's rarely because these people hate these people because it is Jewish people and Arab people, right? That's what it's going to be on the lower level, the personal level, but on the highest level, on the national level, there's going to be economic incentive, right? And so people are negotiating deals to make sure that they are in the best economic situation, right? And so they'll put cadres of people out here in the mainstream to do what they do, but at the end of the day, they want the deal to look a certain way for them. And then you got people that are upset because they're not in the deal. So they'll try to undermine the deal because they're not in it. Iran doesn't want this economic corridor, in my opinion. They don't want this economic corridor, and they're cut out of it, right? Because Iranians, and I think people don't really understand the Persian mentality, they see themselves as like important people in the world because of what they used to do, you know, thousands of years ago. They don't want to be cut out of all this economic activity, but that's the goal of this particular corridor, is to cut them, the Russians, and really the Chinese out of the deal. So what the United States is doing is throwing a carrot to Saudi Arabia and saying, we'll put you in this deal if you just don't deal with Iran anymore. So could Iran have some influence on what we've seen happen? Most definitely, because they have an incentive to destabilize this deal. Right? They do have an incentive economically to destabilize this deal. Right? But it's deeper than just these people don't like these people. That's internet stuff. That's stuff people do in their personal life that can't see things on a bigger picture. So that's pretty much all we want to talk about. Like I said, this is a very deep subject. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving pieces. Anytime you're dealing with governments, there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of different players. That's why I was a big fan of the Game of Thrones, because it showed all of that. And I know why the Game of Thrones didn't appeal to certain people, because I don't think they can wrap their head around all the different people that are all moving at the same time trying to get what they want. But that's how the life really works, right? So I'm going to read these comments. If you got any questions, comments, anything you want to disagree, you could come on live. But you got to keep it to what we're talking about today. And we're going to read these comments, man. We're going to get up on out of here. I appreciate everybody for coming through. Let me put this up real quick. Okay, that's going to be that. Okay, so it's in the chat. Let me do that. Let me read these comments, man. We're going to get up on out of here. So, Corporate Checks, appreciate the $1.99. Selfish Love, appreciate the $4.99. What's up to Houston? Girls with the Pearls, appreciate the $10 super chat. Ray Gunn, I appreciate the $2 super chat. Mimi Roberts, appreciate the $5 super chat. Blue Sox, appreciate the $20 super chat. Amika, come on. Appreciate the $5. Miss Phoenix, man, appreciate the $20. Yeah, I try to do my best. It took a long time, and I still miss out on a lot of stuff because just StreamYard doesn't give you a really good platform to present information. StreamYard is really based just on people talking. You know, it's like a Zoom variant. But I just tried to do the best I could based on the technology I got available to me. Let me pin that. Okay, so that's pinned. So if anybody got any comments, questions, you disagree with anything I said, I encourage you to come on. Don't be bashful. Let me read these comments and we're going to get out of here. Give you some time for the stream to catch up. So Ms. Diva says that you said that Israel, so repeat myself. For some reason I talk fast. You said that Israel is not much militarily except by air. So the compulsory military engagement of the youth just for emotionalism and show. PhD, but I would ask you a question. How capable do you think the IDF is on the ground as compared to they are in the air? Right? So I would make the connection that because they have compulsory military service, that means they're capable compared to other ground-based forces. Right? So we don't have compulsory military service. And in my opinion, our army would essentially eliminate the IDF. Right? Israel is known by death by air. They're known for that. They've been known for that. That's something that they specialize in, right? But I would ask you to just go do some research and ask yourself, how comparable do you think the IDF is as a ground force to other ground forces? Because everybody's nation military is known for different stuff. For years, the British military was known for their Navy. They weren't known for their ground forces. They were known for Navy. So it all depends on what people specialize in. So Dana, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. What's going on?
Hey, Yeah, so I like the show today. It's real good, interesting, and informative. But I kind of like have a little bit of pushback and disagree to the point of um I was told that, Israel, they don't have any minerals, they don't have oil, they don't have anything. So Saudi Arabia is their I think their intentions is it's not to make peace so that we could continue trading and investing. I think it generally is, yeah, make peace. Don't try to push out the Palestinians or give the Palestinians this land or whatever because they're Muslim, because they're Arabs, and these are my people. Because honestly, Israel depends on the United States, Saudi Arabia, China, and others. Nobody is not dependent on Israel for any type of resources because they don't have any. So that's what I disagree with as far as trading or investments. Yeah, Saudi Arabia and other countries invest. China does a lot of trading with technology with Israel, stuff like that. But United States, we have resources. We have oil, we have gold, we have all types of stuff. Africa, the continent of Africa, Israel does not have any liable resources, and
Okay,
it's real.
hold on one second. I want to cut you off, but because I got it. So I just want to ask you a question.
Mhm.
So in your understanding, all business activity between two countries has to be based on natural resources?
Well, there's natural resource. What I'm trying to say is, what do Israel have that Saudi Arabia need? Nothing. What can Saudi Arabia offer Israel? A lot. So Israel
Okay,
need
hold on one second. So what is, when you saying Saudi Arabia can offer Israel a lot, what would that be?
well, whether it's oil, whether it's whatever resources, money, funding, investments. The point, and I'm trying to just simplify it. The point I'm trying to make is Israel, they need the United States. They need the United States to send them billions of dollars annually, especially for the military.
Okay.
Israel needs other countries to invest in Israel. And that does help their country stronger. But when you're also in the business, I'm sorry to say, being a apartheid state, right? And because you want to push out the Palestinians, right? And you look at the percentage of the Palestinians before the Israeli state, when it first started to now, it's solely on the basis, yes, of power, religion, history, or whatever. So all these other countries, and I love the fact that you went back and you pulled up articles from last month and month ago, putting the pieces together. But at the same time, I don't like to gain my knowledge or resources from news articles because the media, they get fifth hand information. So it's a lot of things I feel as though that's already been done in the background that would never come to the public, right? So what we see in these news articles is what was purposely given to us. But
Okay.
one last thing,
Okay.
the thermometer that I'm going off is history. Is the history of that region and between those two groups, and the history of Jewish people, particularly the Z's. I'm not going to say it because we don't need to. So my point is, Israel depends on other countries. Nobody depends on Israel.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to, because like I said, we take it back to the economic activity. So Israel does a large amount of trade with India. This is already known. So what I would do is I would go and research Israel's economic development. Who are their largest trading partners? I'm not talking about them getting aid from outside the United States, because they have a very well developed economy. So as a country with very little to no natural resources, they have a very well developed economy. They have a stock market. They have a foreign exchange. So they're doing some business there because they do have a developed economy, right?
No, I'm
So,
not. And I'm not
hold on one
disagreeing
second.
with
Hold on one
that.
second.
Okay.
Hold on a second. So when saying that Saudi Arabia doesn't need anything from Israel, the goal of the normalization isn't that they need anything from Israel. And we explain this in the video. The goal of the normalization is to exclude Iran and China right from out of the Middle East area. So if
Okay,
we
so
can hold on one second. So if we can get Israel and Saudi Arabia to normalize relations, because Israel is the only really non-Arab state in this part of the world. Saudi Arabia is a major power play in this particular part of the world, right? They're the largest person in the OPEC cartel. If we can get them to normalize relations, Saudi Arabia is going to the United States and saying, we want you to give us this special level of military weapons as part of that particular deal. Their deal with normalizing relations with Israel was never that they needed anything from Israel.
But Saudi, again, so if Saudi Arabia wants to get some type of military weapons for their new city, Neom,
No,
right?
not for them. I didn't say for the new city. They want the weapons because they just want advanced weapons.
Okay, fine.
Yes,
but if they want,
they just want advanced weapons.
My point is, if they want it from the United States, again, you don't need to befriend Israel. And then on top of that, wait, one second. And then on top of that, no one's not trying to push out China, because China and Israel have been doing trades and deals for decades. See, everybody wants to do business with China.
Okay.
And they're doing business with China. We do business with China. China owns, as you know, more than half of our market in real estate here. So again, if in India, listen, again, India don't need it. Do not need Israel. However, business is business. If you can make money and it's billions of dollars, we're going to do business, right? And what they're doing over there, Palestinians versus, them or whatever, it is bad for business. So, but where I'm coming from is, what is happening now is bad for business for both sides. But you have a group of people, the Palestinians, that is Arab, that are Muslims, and like Iran, which is Muslim, but they're Persians, or Saudi Arabia. They're like, listen, y'all need to back off. You need to come to a resolution. This is bad for business, right? But at the same time, if the state of Israel never existed, Saudi Arabia, China, India, they're power players, so they're not dependent on Israel. That's what I'm saying. As opposed to the other way around. I'm going to do business with you because I'm making money. But if you no longer was here, I can still do business somewhere else and still make money. So I'm not relying on you. But you, on the other hand, you want to do business with me. You want to do business with China, with India, more so because you need all of us more than we need you. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I appreciate you coming through and saying that.
Yeah.
All right, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I mean, I really appreciate how you laying this out, because you are coming at it from a different angle. But yeah, Israel is they're not a power player when it comes to economics.
Okay, and I would encourage you to Google their economic development, because I think people have this impression that they're just sitting in the desert doing nothing. I'm not talking about you, but I think people may have that impression. And
no,
they have a very well developed economy.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they don't. Like Taiwan, they have a very developed country. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, when you have a titan like China or Russia or even Saudi Arabia, even Iran, it's a whole different ball game. That's what I'm saying. They can't compete with those other nations. That's why the U.S., we back them, we protect them. That's like our cousin, our little cousin, that we protect from everybody else, because we're their titan. That's what I'm saying.
We're not protecting Saudi Arabia?
Who?
United States.
No, we need Saudi Arabia.
Okay, so I would assume so, as many troops we have in Saudi Arabia, but that just may be my own perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we're more friendlier with them, but we're not protecting Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, to me, is like Switzerland. So, yeah. Okay. But great show, David.
All right, appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, what's going on?
Hey, Dave. Hey, wasn't a pushback. I was actually appreciating you just going in detail and explaining a lot of the the moving pieces behind what's going on over there in Gaza. Like example, another piece that ties into this map you have up with India is how the U.S. wants to kind of contain the people that they see as rivals. How all the alliances and this economic agreement, this economic corridor contains Iran, but then if you think about China and their string of pearls, which have bases in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and then this ties India into Europe and the West and the rest of the United States allies, which kind of undermines that string of pearls. It creates an economic corridor that kind of counterbalances a little bit of the One Belt, One Road initiative.
Yeah,
because that's pretty much almost all those places like Pakistan. Their government is having issues. They're going into default, which means if they don't pay China the loans, they have a base over there in Pakistan. Sri Lanka, they already collapsed. They got a base that can be turned into a military base in Sri Lanka. This is one piece of something a lot larger, and I'm glad you kind of zoomed in on this one, because they're not talking about what's going on, and like me, my brother, he was talking to me about this, how all like where these guys come from. They're like, well, they got to be outside guys because they've been fighting what do they call the uprising intifadas, and they've never had anybody yeah, what's it called? Rockets coming by sea, coming by air, going through, the border walls and everything. Like they've never moved like that. So it's different things are going on. That's a lot of coordination. So I appreciate you doing that. And I wanted to know too, do you think the reason why Turkey was left out of this, even though they're a NATO member, is because of them violating the sanctions on Russia, transshipping their oil, providing drones to Russia in addition to Ukraine? Do you think those two are connected, and that might be a sign too that Turkey might be getting pushed out of NATO in the future?
I don't know if they get pushed out of NATO, but I just don't think they'll have the same relationship that we have, because I think what a lot of Americans aren't hip to is that the Turks don't like the Israelis probably as much as anybody else. And so I think that may be the reason why they're not in this particular deal, is because they don't like Israel. But it's not something that's really talked about in mainstream American news. They really, really don't like Israel. And so I just think they're not I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm gonna cut you off.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, in addition to this corridor, it anchors itself in Greece. And Greece and Turkey have been having like border disputes, and they're both NATO members. Turkey's doing flybys on Greek aircraft, and them fighting over islands and whose territorial water is different, where that international line goes in between those waters. Because Greece has islands, they're like maybe 15 minutes off the coast of Turkey, and that might play into it as well.
Yeah, but the Greeks and the Turks been fighting each other for thousands of years.
Which I thought was ironic that the Israel, the conservative right wing Zionist guys you mentioned want to just annex the West Bank and then just expel all the Palestinians. That almost sounds like what happened after World War I, when they basically expelled all the Greeks out of Turkey and all the Turks out of Greece, and they called it a population exchange, but we call that ethnic cleansing today.
Yeah, it's just but it is what it is. But I just think, like I said, is that based on what information gets presented to us, that kind of frames how we see things, and then we often don't want to go do the further research. So I don't think Turkey's going to get pushed out, because we still got bases in Turkey. And Turkey, for people that are not old to remember, we have I think they're called hydrogen bombs, or really was a nuclear bombs in Turkey on air bases. So because we still I don't know if they've gotten rid of those, or because we had that relationship with Turkey, we kind of mediated their situation between themselves and Israel, because they really don't like each other. So the United States kind of got in between it, because we needed to make sure we kept those air bases viable, and just in case we needed to go north for any type of NATO operation into Russia. So I just think they got kind of put out of the deal because they're not on best terms with Israel. And like you said, it's because of the issues with Greece, but we still got to keep them in the fold because we still got military bases there. And I think the average American may not be aware of how many U.S. military bases are all over the world. And we have to have some level of relationship with those leaders to keep those bases viable there.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but yeah, I just wanted to, I was so glad you hit on because my brother was asking me the same question. And I was telling him, like, well, they have normalization deal going on because he was focused on, oh, China went over there and negotiated a ceasefire in Yemen between Iran and the Saudis. And I was like, that don't mean anything. This is something totally different.
Yeah, but
But
he's right. He's right because the United States is trying to marginalize China's influence in the area. You know, so because what China, and I talked about in the video, China tried to put a deal together between Saudi Arabia and Iran. So the United States realizes we need to come in and show some top level of influence in this area, because the United States' biggest fear is China gets influence in this area, builds relationships that they don't have. So they're trying to make it seem like, you know, how the narrative that the more important than the king is the kingmaker. So I think the United States, the standpoint is that if we can be the person to broker these deals and we can keep the deal together based on both sides having something that we want. That's one thing. I got a lot of respect for Dana, her platform, but I do disagree is that those two groups need something from each other. No, they need something from the U.S. And so the U.S. can put a deal together based on you both want something for us. So we'll make you sit down at the table and come to terms, because we can feed both of you when you both need something from us, which is what? Weapons.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, all of them have Iran as a common enemy. And Iran knows that. That's why that whole corridor, it leaves out Iran, it leaves out Iraq, which is like, since, you know, they had democracy, they've become, you know, Shiite led and they're close to Iran. The Syrians were the Assad regime, they're like another ally of Iran. And then you got Hezbollah in Lebanon. Lebanon's pretty much failed state since, you know, their government collapsed and that they had that port explosion. So it's like, yeah, that's all Iran's influence up there. It's a reason why this corridor runs the way it does.
Yeah, and they want to isolate Iran and push them back towards Russia and China to keep them over there and to keep their influence out of these other areas. But this is the thing. Those groups, in my opinion, are never going to get along. And it's something that I wanted to talk about on the YouTube, but anybody that's still listening, Al Jazeera put out a documentary, I want to say maybe 5-6 years ago, called The Caliphs, if I pronounced that correctly. And it showed how you had all those different caliphs in the Middle East and how it caused a lot of friction between all these different groups. And a lot of that is still going on today. And so I think because like I said, we're in America, we don't get access to certain information. You know, we think Iranians are Arabs and they're not. We don't know the history of Persia. And so we don't understand why some of these groups, in my opinion, are never going to get along, even though they quote unquote have the same religion. It's a lot deeper than that in this particular area.
Exactly. So yeah, thanks, Dave, and I appreciate you doing a deep dive on this. So keep it up, bro.
All right, man. Appreciate it, man. Stay safe. Okay, Miss Daphne, can you hear me? Okay, so calling once, Daphne J, calling twice, calling 3 times.
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Well, first of all, hey, great video, and the information about the stuff that's going on politically in Israel with the 2 conservative guys and Netanyahu's government. I didn't know quite that much. I knew that he needed the radical right to stay in power because of the way the Knesset, that's their Congress. Actually, it's a parliament. Yes, and you have to, everybody, depending on the percentage of the vote you get, is how many seats you get in the Knesset. And because of that, you can get small majorities, small minorities can get together and form and have a big say in the government. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, they can put a block together.
Right. And they're really pushing him far right because they're pushing him right, wanting to annex the West Bank. Where are those several million Palestinians supposed to go?
They're going to go to Jordan, and they're going to collapse Jordan.
Well, you know, Jordan expelled them in the 80s. In the early 80s, Jordan pushed them out.
Exactly. But where else they going to go? They're not going to go to Egypt. Egypt not going to let them in.
Right, because they pushed theirs out too a little bit later.
Exactly.
So, you know, you have millions of people on the move again, and Netanyahu or anyone else, because those people make up about 30% of the voting bloc, those radical right groups. So it's just a conundrum. I don't see an answer. I'm just saying what I see by the way the government is set up is they don't want to trade any more land. And Saudi, yes, they want to normalize relations for the reasons you talked about, but they just can't totally just leave the Palestinians just out in the cold, just that we don't care.
Yeah, but this is something I think is very unfortunate for the Palestinians. And I don't know what part of the country you're from, but I kind of use some of my Caribbean people as a reference point. And we were talking about this earlier with the guy before, is the Palestinians are Muslims, but they're really not, in my opinion, a desired group in the Middle East.
They're not.
Exactly. So they kind of remind me, because I grew up around the West Indian people, how a lot of Black West Indians would treat Haitians. And they would not really, they would kind of low-key look down on Haiti because of the economic situations in Haiti. And act as if they were a little bit better, even though their economic situation wasn't that great, but it was better than what was going on in Haiti. So I think that the Palestinians are in a very bad situation because the other Arab states really don't want them. But then they're stuck in Israel, and the Israelis are not saying, you got this particular part of the government saying, we want to get you out. And they're trying to create a justification to get them out. Because after they do this offensive in Gaza, I don't know what's going to be left in Gaza for anybody to even live there.
Right. Which it was very difficult living there in the first place because you took away everything. They couldn't fish because it was primarily a fishing village. There was a port there that was very profitable in the early part of the century, but all that shut down in 1948 with the founding with the state of Israel. So it's like, how do they can't function economically. And now I do understand since watching this about why the economics in the West Bank is so different and so much better than it is in Gaza. Because they actually have a stock exchange. Their unemployment rate is nowhere near what it's like in Gaza. It's a totally different headspace. So I guess it's, again, because you have so many of Israelis living there.
Yes, ma'am. And what they're doing in Gaza, and this is something that I don't think people realize, is that when you have a situation to where the cream can't rise to the top, the worst gonna rise to the top.
Exactly.
So when you just stuff everybody in there, they got to get the electricity from Israel. They got to get their medical aid from Israel. They got to get their food from Israel. They can't pursue their own economic endeavors. It's going to promote the most sociopathic people.
Sure. When you have 50% of your male population not working, that's a recipe for trouble.
Exactly.
You know, that's some fumes waiting to be ignited. It's just, that's a problem. You sitting around all day hating somebody.
Exactly. So I just think Israel knows what they're creating in that environment. And they're just, to me, like I said, they nourished it because they thought they could use it. Because one thing that Israel's doing that happens to us is they're trying to destabilize Palestinians. So they can, if they can destabilize them, then they can make them so weak that when the military finally does come in, they're going to be easy to knock off.
But did you notice that in all the film that's coming back, it's like it was like 3 different groups of fighters going into those parts of Israel? Because you had some guys that were like all kitted up. They had on camo. They had multiple weapon systems. The uniforms, boots, everything, right? Yes, they were moving. They were moving like a squad. When you see them on the tapes of them, the video of them moving into these various kibbutzes, they were moving. They had military tactics. I'm prior military, so they were moving. They were moving like a squad would move.
Okay, so you can point it out.
To take over area, right? Okay, then you had a second group that was all in black. They too had pretty decent weapons, but they still weren't as kitted out as these guys that was in camo.
Okay.
And then you had a group of dudes that was looking like some bros you just pulled off the court. They run around in Jordans and basketball shorts with AKs. You know, they weapons was looking raggedy. You see them shooting. They have no trigger discipline. They shooting with the weapons over their head, and you know, just no weapon control, no trigger control at all. You know, very little training. All they knew was point and shoot. So again, you wonder, like I said, where's the money coming from? And you had 3 different layers of people doing the operations.
Yeah, but we know that Qatar gives them, last I heard it was around 30 million a month in Gaza. And I heard they had lost some of that, but Qatar does, because like I said, none of the Arab states want to make it seem like they left some Muslims to hang out to dry, but at the same time, they really don't like Palestinians.
Yeah, so they don't want them at their house.
Exactly. So they just spoon feed them so it don't look bad that we just left y'all to hang out to dry, but then we never really empower y'all. Y'all sure can't come over here.
Right.
So Qatar shoot them a little bit of money. we know that they do have some relation with Iran. So but then also I read an article about how they were financing a lot of stuff using crypto market. So
Okay.
because another thing that Israel, like I said before, is they don't allow any real economic activity in the region. They can't do anything to really make money. So they were able to use crypto because it's anonymous to get financing, because they do get financing from all over the world, because they similar to remind me of the you might remember the IRA. But the IRA was getting a lot of financing from the states. People that didn't want to fight but believed in the cause would just send them money. And so I think that's what's going on. I didn't mean to cut you. I'm sorry.
No. So do you think at any point that Israel would allow some type of economic development in Gaza?
No. The goal is like I said, the same thing they're doing us over here. The goal is just to continue to destabilize them, make them so weak, and then create, like we said, this situation here. Because you being former military, I don't understand what the amount of money that is being spent on Israeli intelligence, and we being told for years that they got the best intelligence in the world, yada yada yada, that you don't know that attack is coming. I don't care.
Well,
I don't need Egypt to tell them how they don't know the attack is coming, and then when it happens, they respond to it so slowly.
Well, one of the things that they point out that does make some sense is that they went old school in the communications, is that they came away from telephone and data, internet communications, and they literally was flying pigeons and using human couriers and things of that nature to get, to get this thing organized and get the training done and so forth and so on. But
let me ask you a question though.
Go ahead.
With a lot of the intelligence being, and I know this from dealing with people that was in the police, a lot of their intelligence is person to person.
Right.
And I also heard that a lot of the people that were getting permits to leave Gaza City to come into Israel to work, they also was part of the attack. So it's confused that it was this many people conspiring against Israel, and Israel had no idea what was going on. But like I said, and I didn't want to sidetrack it, to continue to destabilize them. So now when you come in with the land troops and you come in with the death by air, there's such a weak group of people, they can't present any defense to what you're doing. No,
they can't fight a standard land war.
Yeah, they definitely.
But is it that you just want to come in and blow up stuff? Because like I said, the port in Gaza City was a major Middle Eastern port in the first half, when the British controlled that area, when the Turks had it, and then later when it came to the British after World War I, that port was shipping like grain and it was a major port for shipping all over the world. So that you shut that down, and that did once exist, and you've turned it into just a hellhole. I mean, it's called the open air prison. You got all these people jammed in. They don't work.
Their justification for keeping that port down is that, well, if we open it up, they're going to be bringing in weapons.
Right. So and you took away. Yeah. So and you took away them. Oh, I'm sorry. We keep talking at the same time. You go ahead. No, you go ahead.
You go ahead. No, you go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be quiet.
Well, and they cut off, like I said, the port, shipping out of the port. You build walls around there, so they have trouble coming back and forth to work, because that's what the jobs are. You don't even let them people fish. They can't go more than like 5 miles out. And, they're in one of the best, a great fishery of the world. That was normally how they eat, is you've cut off something that's been there for millennia, is to go out, take your boat out and fish and so forth. And then you want to know why they want to fight you. And like I said, the biggest thing I noticed was it's like you had 3 different levels of fighters, and particularly them guys in camo. Like you said, how did this awesome intelligence not see these dudes being trained up or being coming into the country?
Yeah. Like I said, I think they got trained, and like I said, I'm not former military, but I think they got trained out of the country and brought in. But like I said, once it starts to go into effect, they don't have Israel don't have a rapid response team to move immediately.
I caught that too.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out, because we were told all these years, and I know the Mossad done killed a lot of people. That's a fact. But we've been told all these years that Israeli has this superior intelligence agency. They soldiers is top tier, yada, yada, yada. And this happens, and it goes on as long as it went on. And there's not a rapid response to it once it starts to go on, because somebody had to be communicating back to them that this is going on.
Right.
So that's just very unusual.
Yeah. And also, okay, you got people living next to Gaza.
Exactly.
So do they have very strict gun law? How come these people weren't armed
But
in
see,
these
that's another thing.
kibbutzes?
But that's what I talked about on my platform. Israel has some of the most strict gun laws in the world. So this is what don't make no sense. I'm saying that these people in Hamas are fanatical animals. They hate Jews. But I got my people 2 and 3 miles away from the wall and don't nobody have a burner. I have a gun. So they just sit out there. They sitting ducks. So as soon as the attacks start, they can't rally any defense. But I'm saying that we need all these weapons because these people called Hamas are so crazy. This don't add up.
Right. But every home doesn't have a rifle in it, doesn't have a long gun.
Yeah, they need a gun in every house with these folks. I mean, the way them people came at them, you need a gun in every room of your house.
Right.
You don't need one gun, you need a gun in every room of your house.
Right. And they're so violent that you had to build this wall along this whole strip. You've totally between barbed wire and a wall.
Exactly.
So with me, I'm not living that close. If I choose to live there, because it's, from what I hear, the land over there is very pretty. It's like sunny and it's temperate, like San Diego.
Yeah,
I'm going to be strapped. I'm living next to people that I'm occupying. That would make sense. And how they were just able to run through, and they ran into no
resistance
at all. Even the cops, but was there no cops?
But that's what I'm saying. This is what doesn't make any sense. But like I said, we have been told all these years that they were the best at that. And this is what I want people to understand. I think because of our conditioning, we assume that all fair-skinned people are competent. So when something goes wrong, we think it got to be a conspiracy. This might just be an example that they really are incompetent.
Yes, because I know there's going to be some changes in the government.
Yes,
because the death toll is just going to keep rising just on the side of them finding more bodies
and more dead people. Yeah, so yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So I don't understand for them now to tell us that these Hamas people are the scourge of the earth. But my question is, if you knew that the whole time, why aren't your people armed in the country, but especially living close to the wall? Because they was having that festival right next to Gaza City.
Right.
So as soon as those dudes came over the wall, it was a target of opportunity. They just ran through this, started killing people because they really went out on the road where everybody had the car. They killed everybody on that road.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy that there was no preparation. But I'm saying, because where I'm from, if I know that this neighborhood don't like us and they kill us, I got to have a gun on me because I know it's like that. It's no way in the world I'm gonna be out here on the street with nothing on me. But I'm saying to myself, well, these dudes down the street, they just some killers.
Right. If you go down to, I'm in Texas, Southwest Texas. If you go down to the if you go down to the border in West Texas, the people that live along that border, especially the folks that's got them ranches and stuff like that, they seriously strapped up.
Okay.
They got multiple, AR platforms and stuff in the house, among other things, pistols and so forth. Even when that horrible thing happened at that school, you had civilians running to the schools with weapons. It was the police that was holding them back from going in there. That's something they don't talk about on the news outside of Texas.
Okay.
That they was coming in to try to get at that guy. And so, as I said, you're living next to these folks that you are occupying, that you say are so dangerous that you got to have 20-foot barbed wire fences and stuff between them, and they can only come through at certain ports. And nobody has a gun in case they do. In case the first line of defense falls down, you can't do anything. And finally, who blew up the port that gets you into Egypt?
I thought didn't the Israelis do that?
Well, everybody claiming they didn't do it. Hamas said they didn't do it. Israelis said they didn't do it. But if you're telling folks that they need to get out of Gaza, you blew up the other way for them to get out?
Because they boxing them in.
Yeah, so it does sound like a bit of ethnic cleansing to me too. So.
Yeah, they boxing those people in. Because I think, like I said before, it's based on a lot of the rhetoric from the hard right. They just want to get rid of these folks. They're in the way of what they're trying to do with Israel. They want to expand Israel all the way out into the sea. And they're tired of dealing with these folks. And I think Netanyahu realizes that this can mess up our normalization in this area because, like I said, they've been going through this for 50 years. They may not be able to do another 50 years of this strife in this area because once the U.S. says the money's over with, they're going to fall off because they need the money for military.
Yeah. Well, that's happening. The U.S. is pulling out of the Middle East in the sense that we've been there the previous 50 years. that's over with. The type of
Okay.
naval protection and those bases, they're the long-term plan is to draw down and come out of there from the footprint that we have now. So these
Okay.
other countries are going to have to figure out a way to make a deal to live here. So if you can get Saudi on your side, because Saudi is never going to get with Iran, because they're
Yeah.
two different types of Muslims,
Exactly.
and they consider the other ones cuckoo. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like
they really don't like each other.
yeah, so they're never gonna make friends just based
Yeah.
on that. What because they're two different sides of it. Let's know also the ethnicity, because I'm glad you brought that out too, because there's ethnicities as well as national rivalries within Islam.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, the different caliphates. You know, are you this people? Are you Turks? Are you Persians? Are you Arab? You know, and then even then within them groups, they got stuff that breaks down. But
Yeah, they
look,
got
I
all-
don't want to
yeah.
take over your show. Thanks for letting me come in, and again, keep up the good work.
All right, I appreciate you calling. I appreciate you adding your perspective in.
Okay, you have a great day.
All right, take it easy. Be safe.
Bye-bye.
What's up, man? What's up, D? What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, brother? Can you hear me?
I can hear you, man. What's good?
Man, first of all, I want to say blessings to you in the chat. And this has been definitely a master class. I definitely a lot of information I did not know. But I'm just going to ask a quick question and just hang up. Could you go into a little bit more depth about the other group? You said it's Hamas, and then you said there was another group, and I've just never heard of that group. I've just just Hamas. So I'm thinking all of the Palestinians, that's who they align with. But during this talk, you alluded to that there's actually two groups in Palestine, and they're trying to divide and conquer. So, once again, thank you, and I'm just gonna just go back into the chat.
Okay, man. So appreciate the question. So the other group is what we were calling Fatah, and some people also know them as PLO. You might remember Yasser Arafat. And so, from my understanding, is that they were in favor of a two-state solution, right? However, in my opinion, Israel never wanted a two-state solution. So what they did was they nourished a group like Hamas that was never going to agree to a two-state solution, so you can justify getting rid of Palestinians, because Hamas is never going to agree to a two-state solution. Their attitude is Israel need to leave. Well, Israel's not going to leave. So then now we had a stalemate. So now we got the justification to just start trying to figure out how to get rid of Palestinians. And I think a lot of us don't understand a war of attrition is not designed to happen fast. So when you look at Gaza City, the majority of their population is like teenagers. Because why? Their old people die so fast. So if we can continue to marginalize this particular group, we can get rid of them, and it may take time, but eventually they'll be to where there'll be nobody left. It'll be a city full of young folks, right? And then definitely they won't be able to fight. But Fatah, from my understanding, was what we also known as the PLO. Yasser Arafat, at one time, you can go Google who he was a leader of that. They were a secular organization. They weren't really based around religion. Well, Hamas is 100%, they want to essentially create a theocracy, right? Which is a religious government very similar to what Israel had. They just got a different perspective on it. So those two groups was fighting, and what happened is Hamas pushed Fatah out of Gaza using violence, right? Fatah just couldn't stand up to him. So they pushed them out using violence, and then they took control over Gaza City. So now they have it. But Fatah still does have some influence in what we call the West Bank, but they've lost Gaza City. And so what's really unusual about that map of Israel is you have these two sections that are split with Palestinians, and then Israel has this little weird map that they have where they got the area in the middle. To me, Hamas's goal is to split Israel across the middle, right? And if they can split Israel across the middle, they can connect those two sections. The problem is they're gonna need a lot of troops to do it, and they're gonna need some help. And I don't think they're gonna get the help. They're gonna just get strung out if they try to do it. But to me, that's what they want to do, is they want to split Israel across the middle from Gaza City up into the West Bank. That's what I would try to do if I was them. But that's the only thing, that's the difference between those two groups. So I appreciate the question. So if we got any more comments, y'all come up, man. We're gonna read through these comments. We're gonna get up on out of here. Let me go to see if I got some other super chats. So Roscoe, man, appreciate the $5. Mr. CMB, appreciate the $4.99 super chat. Alexander Wilson, don't forget that Israel is big in the semiconductor market. Israel has 3 big manufacturing centers there. They're very important to the global chip supply. Don't forget about tech. I mean, everybody got their own perspective. Like I said, is that Israel has a very developed economy. That's why, in my opinion, they don't need our money. They don't need our money. But if somebody's going to give you the money, you take it. We bring Erica through. Yeah, they don't need our money. Miss Erica, how you doing?
How you doing? How you doing?
How you
I was
doing?
gonna let you. I was gonna let you know. I just finished several phone calls with some of the Jewish business people we have in our syndication group,
Yes, ma'am.
and they're happy as can be. They're chilling. They're inside the city. The people that you see in the settlements, the people that you're seeing on the news, the people you see that are at the raves, those are people who are what we call the last minute come. Like the way they described it to me is like the last 5 years they've been telling people come to Israel, right?
Okay.
So you got these French people who are leaving France because France was becoming more Muslim. You got a lot of people who are poor leaving Russia. Russia been letting a lot of Jewish people out, even though they haven't been letting other people out. You basically have Jewish people from all other countries that are kind of being pushed out of the other areas anyway. Because I don't know if you went on to France the last couple of years. It's been like a lot of like attacks and hurting Jewish folks in those cities. That's who's on those borders and those edges. If you listen to the news and you see some of the video, they're speaking French.
Okay.
They're not speaking Jewish language. They're speaking French. So it's one of these things where it's not the people that's been your ride or die people. It's been your last minute sallies, right? Even our church here in Texas sends money for boots and clothes to the guys who are active military. And those are mostly Ethiopians and younger guys. Like there are a bunch of young guys came out of Florida, went over there, like just kind of on a pilgrimage. And so you got to understand, like, I'm not saying they're sacrificing the people that they don't care about, but like, if you're on the edges of the town, they already consider you poor. They consider you a last minute, you just came here. And even they are uncomfortable being in those areas. The women carry guns. Every house has a gun. Their gun laws are weird, but every house has a gun. Even the guy we do business with, him and his father has pictures of him at their house with guns, and they're in the tighter part of the city. So I just wanted to add that little context to it because I just if people haven't been looking at the news, like you're trying to figure out why the people aren't speaking, I guess what we would assume they'd be speaking, but they're speaking French. That's who's on those edge towns.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Do you have any kind of opinion on why you think those people on the edge towns weren't armed?
Man, it's tough. They treat them not as bad as the Ethiopians. They don't treat them that bad. But basically, all the charity work that our church does, it gives money to those people. It gives food boxes, and they make it seem like it's old Russian Jews that are on the edge of towns. So they already kind of like old people. So I don't know why those people aren't following the rules to have a gun. But everybody's supposed to have at least one gun in their house. Okay. If you walk your children to school, if it's a mother, she's supposed to have a gun. Like if you get a chance, if you look at some pictures from Tel Aviv Beach, if you leave from our group went from Tel Aviv Beach into the city, back towards the city, like they walking around. They got it. They got them, but they look old. They look like old guns. Nothing new. Like what your family can afford. And you can tell people can't afford nothing new over there, Dave. Like it's expensive. I don't know if anybody's ever lived in California. Like they compare it to living in California. What is living on the edges compared to like living in Texas?
Okay.
So that's why you see in the people that are being attacked, they're poor, they're French, they're Russian, they're Jews, but they're not money Jews.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw a video of, and we were talking about with the earlier caller, they were like commandos and they caught these people outside a gate. And they shot that car up so bad it was ridiculous. And I'm just trying to figure out, like I talked about before, it's very unfortunate that you're living that close to Gaza where there's an issue with these people based on what you're telling me. And I mean, I would need a gun in every room of my house just in case something happened. All I got to do is just run to the gun.
Well, what's crazy is the Palestine people that you do meet, they're actually really nice. Okay. Like, that's the crazy part. Like, when we were at Tel Aviv Beach and stuff, they were like super nice, no drama. I think it's the people that are on the other side of that wall, though. They pissed. It's not the people that like, oh, I actually live here. Like, I live and have a business here. I live and do work inside Tel Aviv. It's all the people that are outside that wall. Like, yeah, they pissed. But when you ran into people, like the Jewish people we were with, these people offered us some kind of like snack. And I didn't understand. It tasted sweet. But they were saying they couldn't eat it from them. And the Palestine people were offended because they were like, no, it's a gift. It's a gift. and they were like, we can't eat it because it's not kosher.
Not kosher.
And they were
Yeah, it's not
saying they
kosher.
made it halal, and they were saying, well, we can't eat it because it ain't kosher. And it was like
Yeah.
a little 2-minute exchange between our tour group and them. And I was just shocked at like, oh, they about to be mad with each other. Like, you insulting them, not taking this little snack.
Yeah.
And so it was super interesting. But it's one of those regions, they gonna be forever, y'all. Like, they gonna be forever. We poured enough of our energy and time, but those people gonna be forever. So it I don't know what the good, there's no incentive on either side to solve it. So that's the sad part.
Okay. I feel you. All right. Well, I appreciate you
what I
coming
had for
through,
you.
Erica. No
For sure,
problem.
for sure.
Be,
Great,
all right, be
great
safe. Take it easy.
masterclass.
All right. Thank
You
you.
too.
Appreciate it. Let me see. So we got anybody else before I get up on out of here because it's 8:04. So Erica with the $2 super chat, Mr. Wilson. But I want to remind people, I would encourage people to look at Israel's economy. They got a decent economy, which, like I said before, is that I don't think they need our money. They may need our weapons. They can buy them like everybody else. Saudi Arabia buys them. They don't look for no giveaways. I don't know why Israel needs our aid. They got ways of making money. They have a very advanced economy. The narrative is that they're very intelligent. They can figure out ways to do business and make money, right? Because a lot of countries don't have natural resources like Japan, and they figured out ways to be profitable and to have a good surviving country. So I don't think they need to leverage natural resources to bring revenue into that particular society. So I would look at tech. I forgot which, it's either Fiverr or Upwork, but I think it's Fiverr is an Israeli-based company, if I'm not mistaken. They do got a very solid stock market. They got a lot of stuff going on over there. You know, they big on pharmaceuticals, and they also do manufacture some weapons on their own. They manufacture some firearms, also I think some type of bombs or something. So they do have some weapon sales, but they got a good robust economy. I don't know if they make cars or anything like that, but that's a good comment. Erica, Dave gave a master class. Appreciate it. Appreciate the $2 super chat. Edge H, appreciate the $1.99. D Felder, in agreement with Erica, he really did disappoint one bit. Okay, Miss Felder, I appreciate it. Big up to California. So we're gonna read these comments, man. We're gonna get up on out of here. So Miss Katrina says 3 weeks isn't enough time to get supplies. Yeah, and they didn't train those people in 3 weeks either. Them dudes were sitting back ready for that fight, right? Because just like the caller from Texas said, you had a group of guys, and people that shot up that car, they was military. There wasn't some dudes they just handed a gun to and said, go run. Them dudes, man, they shot that car. I felt so bad for those people. They didn't have a chance in the world. I mean, they Swiss cheese that car. It was right outside of a gate. They was trying to go into the gate. You know, you got the gate for the complex. They was trying to wait for the gate to open up. Man, them dudes came out to cut, man, and shot that car to death, man. They killed everybody in there. And then they went inside the gate. Those dudes was commandos. So they have been planning this. Now, here's something else I want to talk about. And I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I'm going to say this because we can make 5 videos about this particular topic. Israel said they're going to get rid of Hamas. That's the goal. Okay, I don't think that's going to be possible, but they said it. This is the issue. The leader for Hamas lives in Qatar. He don't live in Gaza, right? Because they learned that trick because the guy that started Hamas got killed by living in Gaza, right? So they learned. So the leadership guy lives in Qatar. If you can't get the Qatar to kill him, why does it matter how many Hamas people you kill if he's the leader and he can go build the group back up again anyway? Because he can use the death of those people to martyr and build the group back up. So I don't understand when they say we're going to get rid of Hamas. My question, let's say you do get rid of Hamas. Now what you going to do after that? Because you're still going to have the same issue. You got all these Palestinians you got to deal with. So that's why this don't make no sense to me. But this is just what they do. Yeah, 3 weeks, enough time to get supplies. I agree. It's all enough time to train them. To train guys to paraglide in, to jump on those rafts to come in. All those dudes got killed. And also to use, I don't know what you want to call it, construction equipment to knock the gate down. And then they knew what places they wanted to go to attack. Yeah, they've been planning that for a long time. So Anthony Russell said, that's been net high use aim for 20 years. I believe you. Navy vet says, you late to the show. What's up to the Navy vet? Okay, so it's called a yarmulke. Yeah, I didn't know. Appreciate that. I remember a dude played basketball. I forgot what country he was coming out of, what state he was coming out of. He played basketball on a yarmulke. I said, that thing must get sweaty. So Leon says, our country made it illegal to boycott Israel. Majority of states passes a law that cuts funding to your business if you boycott. I feel you. So Tia Z talks about it. She's 100% correct. The only reason America stopped supporting apartheid was economics. Definitely. Coca-Cola pulling out of that area was one of the biggest reasons, 100%. And if you also notice, Miss Tia Z, they did not allow South Africa to keep their nukes once black people took over, but that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, Blue Sox says Jordan already has refugees from Palestine, Syria, and Iraq. Yeah, Jordan got a lot of people that they can't take any more people. And they're nice to take all those people. So Saudis already have a failed state in Yemen on the southern border. I doubt they want Jordan to become another one on the northern border. Yeah. And I know why the Saudi Arabians want those drones, because they're going to kill some more people in Yemen. That's why they want those drones. They want that high-level drone technology. El Light says Israel and Iran have been fighting proxy wars for years. Saudi Arabia wants to need peace so they can move forward their economic future. Yeah. Anthony says, what happened to the PLO? I think they switched up their name. They're still around, but they're just not what they used to be. So Blue Sox says Fatah is the PLO. Yeah, they just switched the name up. TZ says, I read that Egypt had pre-warned Israel about Hamas pre-planned attack. They may have. Even if they didn't warn them, once it starts happening, like I talked to the caller from Texas, where's the rapid response team? Because that thing went on for a long period of time. Where's the rapid response team? Like, it should be some soldiers that all they do is sit around and wait for something to happen. Like, you know, they should just, that's all they do is they sit around. As soon as the bell hit, they ready to go. You know, that's called being organized. All that money we spending over there, it don't make no sense. So Anthony Russell says Iranians and Turks are not Arabs. Definitely. I don't know what are Turks. Turks, Persians? Because I went to college with a lot of Turks. They look like Caucasians. Iran is a regional rival to Saudi Arabia. Definitely. Well, like we talked about before, I don't think Persians are necessarily bad people, but they just ain't taking nothing off nobody. That's just how it is. You know, they don't see nobody. And I ain't mad at them. You know, they don't see nobody. They don't, you know, it doesn't matter to them. It's whatever. So we talked about this with PhD Diva. Yeah, I would investigate that. But the Israelis are really known to have a very advanced Air Force. They do a lot of death by air because they don't want to go in. Who wants to go into Gaza City? So Amika says they're top 5 in the world in cyber technology. That is their export. Many tech companies do their core coding there, including Microsoft. Yeah. Big up to Amika. So Mika says the drones used in the Azerbaijan-Armenia conflict were made there. Okay, that's good information. Everybody using drones. Even Hamas used drones on the attack. Everybody using drones. Drones are blown up. I need to look at some stock tickers on drones. Ibrahim says, I find it interesting the conversation of cryptos being brought up during the conflict. I feel you. U.S. has military base in over 81 countries. Definitely. The U.S. still asks Saudi Arabia for loans. I need to get some information on that. Yeah, China bought a lot of our debt. Geechee Dan says U.S. owns China a ton of money. Yeah, China bought a lot of our debt. A lot. So L Light says Israel's trying to get an economic foothold in the midst of being surrounded by enemies on all sides. Yeah, they got to solve that problem. I don't think they're sustainable for the next 50 years if everybody around them hates them. I just don't think it works because they're assuming that the United States is going to always be able to support them. That's the same mistake Castro made. Once the Russians could no longer give Castro money, Cuba was over. Right? I don't think that's sustainable. You know, they need to try to scale some of that back. It's cool to have a country just give you all your weapons. You ain't got to buy nothing. But I wouldn't, you know, try to do that to the end of time. But it is what it is. Yeah, Greece and Turkey have a very tense issue, definitely. That's something that was talked about in some of y'all might not watch The Wire. The Greeks was pushing all the heroin into Bmore. And they jammed up some Turkish dude. And they had to kind of let them know, man, we're not tripping on that old stuff. We just need some information. But it was the Greeks that was pushing all the heroin into Bmore. But that's been going on forever. The Greeks and the Turks, they've been trying to kill each other for a very long time. And like I said, if you look at most Turks, they look like white folks. So almost seems to be a false flag attack. I wouldn't say that, but I think it was deliberate. I don't think it was a false flag. I think it was deliberate. You know, I think people are trying to get something done, so they needed that to take place. So Aaron says, I think the plan is for Gaza to be plowed under, made Israeli living space. I agree with you. I think the goal is to get those people out of Gaza City. They're close to the water. I can't understand why they're not utilizing. Well, I understand because of the conflict and the strife there with rockets and all that other crazy stuff. They're not utilizing that water. Y'all got all that waterfront? We need casinos and everything up there. We got all this waterfront, and it's not a cold water. It's a nice area. Yeah, I need to get casinos and clubs and the whole 9 yards. So yeah, I think they're going to literally get rid of everybody inside Gaza City. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think they're going to do it. And they're going to use this as a justification for it. So Erica talked about she was on a Zoom call with Jewish businessmen. They say only poor people live on the edges and Jews live in other countries. So that's why they was way out in the sticks, living right next to that wall. So y'all got to be crazy to live next to these people if they as bad as they say they are. Yeah, I mean, I got to have a gun under my pillow living with y'all because y'all tripping. So Big Sid said I was a Hafida agent. It's 89. The people at the park had weapons. Yeah, because I always heard you go to the airport. They got guns in the airport. So I just didn't understand how these dudes was able to run around and nobody wasn't shooting at these. They just was running around just shooting at everybody. I was like, this is crazy. But that's what happened. So they found some soft targets. So Carla J says, only the poor people live in the settlements. Israel is very expensive. I was shocked being from Los Angeles. So that's why everybody's way out there in the sticks. Big up to the credit solutionist coming through. What's up? We ain't seen you in like 5 years. Okay, Wix. Yeah, Wix is based in Israel too. Yeah, so they got some publicly traded companies. What's up to Thomas? What's up with Thomas? They got to go to Qatar to get that dude if they're going to knock off Hamas. And I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying they got to do what they got to do. So Turks are Caucasians. Okay, because like I said, a lot of them went to my college. They look like Caucasians. So Erica says Turkey marched. Yeah, I remember that. They marched the Armenians out. The Kardashians are Armenians. I feel you. Do I think there'll be a shift in Israel's Mossad intelligence? No, I think they're good. I think they know everything. They just doing what they need to do at the time they need to do it. Oh, Floyd sent up. Oh, so Erica says Floyd sent a plane full of supplies. Okay, big up to Floyd. TZ says, I wonder how many Palestinians will be allowed to migrate here as political refugees. No telling. But they need to watch who they let over here, because some of these people they bringing over here, man, they view on the world is totally different than everybody else. But different between us and over there, man, we stay strapped, especially down in the Southeast. We got too many guns down here. All right, man. So I appreciate everybody for coming through. Everybody stay safe. Appreciate the commentary. Appreciate the agreements and the disagreements. It's all good. Everybody got their own perspective. The goal is to try to give people a different perspective, give them something they can go research and learn from. Y'all take it easy, man. Talk to y'all later.